One of the biggest challenges every practice has is sorting out their rota. Which rooms do people go in, which rooms are available, and when are people working? And it would be nice to have a system that helps to streamline this whole process and make it easier for you, your practice, and definitely your practice manager. Well, in this episode, I talked to the team from GP Rota, so that's Kiran and Arjuna, as they explain their product and how it can help you in your practice, how it can help you in your network, or even your hub. Doesn't really matter because it covers all of them. So let's join them as they talk about their product, GP Rota, and let's tech enhance your primary care and learning. Shall we begin? Thank you for joining us at EGP Learners. In this episode, I'm joined by Arjuna and Kiran as we talk about GP Rota and what potentially this can do for your practice. How are we doing, both of you?
Very good.
Morning.
Cool. So I always prefer people to introduce themselves because they probably do it far themselves. So Kiran, shall we start off with yourself, considering you're at the top of my screen and things? So tell us about yourself, what you've been up to.
Sure. Okay. I'm Kiran and Arjuna. I'm a GP in North Central London. I'm also a GP trainer on the Barnet scheme. I'm an innovation lead and the CCG digital lead. My hobbies include winter mountaineering. It was at the summit of Mont Blanc when I found my calling. It was a journey that was treacherous, requiring sheer grit and determination. The problems along the way. To get to the summit, you had to climb up and down. It's not your traditional mountain. And we had a similar journey with GP Rota. I think we've now reached our summit. And we want to share the vision, the view from the summit with everyone. It's beautiful. So that's what I want to share with you today.
Thanks, Kiran. Arjuna, I'm a GP in Enfield, partner at a practice. I'm also a clinical director for our local PCN, the Enfield Southwest PCN. And similar to Kiran, I'm also a digital clinical lead with North Central London. And I also sit on the as a federation director with our local Enfield Federation. Cool. And I'm here today to tell you about GP Rota, which we founded together a few years ago.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I know you've both been working on this product of GP Rota for a while, and it seems quite interesting. So tell us a bit about
that. So Gandhi, if you're looking for a solution that's there to help you have complete control of your workforce scheduling within your practice, your PCN or your hub, or any large organization, then I think we have the platform for you. It also manages your estates. It helps forecast your rota months ahead, shows you transparency and fairness is one of our starting principles for GP Rota. It also manages your own locum agency. We believe in it so much that we're actually letting practices use it for free during the times of COVID. And we're completely upfront with our costs as well. So that hopefully should help. With our story, Arjuna and myself, we both met while working a busy practice in Haringey. I was covering maternity locum. I think Arjuna was a registrar at the time. He was working on his anesthesia logbook app at the time. And I passed across a few years later, and we were both looking for a similar solution to kind of help with workforce scheduling. So I think it was back in 2014. And I think Arjuna had already started on this project, but we had the same beliefs. We wanted a solution that incorporates all of the different tools. There are a lot of generic tools out there that did different aspects of this, but we wanted to kind of bring it all together. And we believed there's a lot of people believed in the same thing that we believed in: managing your workforce scheduling, showing complete transparency and fairness. And so we teamed up together, and working on each other's strengths, we developed this platform. And we wanted to help our practices better organize and collaborate, and then allow them to excel, and realize that other practices have similar beliefs that we did. And then we're able to share ideas with them. And that's how GP Rota was born.
And I guess with the way that it works, I know you spoke a lot about how this was trying to tackle the needs of GPs and stuff. How have you gone about, understanding those particular needs? That can be quite challenging. So, is there anything particular you've been doing to help look at that?
So our long-term cause is to support practice sustainability and sort of avoid the risk of privatization. We're focusing on workforce recruitment and retention, optimize the state so practices can see how they can take on new staff, trainees, but also know who's working remotely. What we did was we were working with the end users. We're working with the rota leads, the clinicians, the day-to-day basis, the practice managers, the PCN leads. We were trying to incorporate the whole practice team, because with GP Rota, it should have an impact on every single staff member within your organization. That's the kind of the ethos we have with the GP Rota, is we're working with every single person that works within the practice and try and work out what would make their life easier. And we've tried to create the tools that allow you to do that. And we realize that actually, workforce organization for every staff member within the practice is very, very important to know when they're working, what time they're working, about the overtime, also so bank holiday allowances. This is something, something we're working on as well. So these are all the tools that we've kind of developed along the way, and it's a starting principle. I mean, first founded this project when we were looking at, we took on a challenge. The challenge was managing a practice that had satellite branches, and we want to be able to show fairness within that practice, but also make sure there's equal distribution of things like on-calls. And we want to make sure that all the practices were happy with what they saw. It's very difficult trying to manage a multi-site practice, and that's the challenge we took on right at the very beginning. And it's kind of taken the natural progression now as we've since developed something like PCN Rota, which is a natural progression from there.
And I think the unique thing is with Kiran and I being, I'm predominantly leading on the coding and development, and Kiran on the front end, improving the usability and interacting with our user clients and figuring out what their needs are, and us as genuinely using, as myself as the Rota coordinator within my Rota organizer within my thing, I am one of the clients, so I'm able to sort of unusually identify what's useful for me to do from for my practice, for my PCN. Is generally useful to many of us across the system. So I think that's where we're quite unique to other providers providing similar solutions. And one that it's made by GPs for GPs. So and it's a small team. We don't have any. We're not any sort of big corporate organisation. We don't have any other outside funding. So it's a genuine tool built from the ground up for what we need. And and as a result, we're very agile, and we're able to react to a client could say, a practice can say, I need it to for example last week, as Kiran was saying, I need some way of knowing how many days in lieu I need to give for my staff for bank holidays. So we were quickly go on the whiteboard and figure out how we do that, and able to produce that data for that practice, which I'm sure will be useful for every practice that we're trying to work out fair allocations, especially with bank holidays, which can be quite complicated. So I think that's our USP, really.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned equality, you mentioned fairness. I mean, particularly the bank holiday thing. I know many practices always have this conundrum. How do you work out lieu days and bank holiday days, all that kind of stuff? Yeah, I don't get it, to be honest. and that's after being a partner for years or so. How have you been tackling these kind of challenges, and where do you feel that GP Rota can help with that?
So it's exactly that. It's trying to look at a problem that most of us are struggling with, and because it's got so much historical data stored in it. So literally every session that a clinician has done, not just this year, over my particular practice, it goes back 5 years, and you can see. And you can then look at that data as a whole for a whole year. Look at how, for example, the bank holiday problem, looking at where the clinicians have worked, what their normal working pattern is, whether it normally coincides with the bank holiday or not, and then comparing that ratio to work out the number of bank holidays in lieu, depending on the number of bank holidays there are in that particular year, which changes every year. So it's really enjoyable problems to try and solve, and what really motivates you is that by solving this problem for yourself, because that's generally where it starts from. I need to know for myself how to do this fairly for my own practice. That it's exciting to say, look, this is to a lot of your practices. Look, we've made this. It's really useful, and we get a lot of positive feedback that way. So so it's very working as we're a small organization, we can work very closely with our clients and come up with quick solutions that don't take long to bring to be able to use quite quickly on the front end.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, we are an organization that basically, we are a small organization, but, we did have interest from outside organization, but actually we decided, we're genuine. We wanted to create a product for general practice, made by general practitioners. and we didn't want them to buy our product and turn it into another locum bank agency, because there's several out there. But actually, we have a genuine tool that we feel that serves a purpose. We've almost created a movement here. What we're trying to do is create sustainability within general practice to help with the future workforce of general practice and how we can manage new trainees that come in within the practice. Where you're going to place them. As a GP trainer, that's important to me, and so that's the journey that we're on.
Okay. So would it be worth having a quick look at what I guess GP Rota can do for practices and stuff, and particularly things like just I guess an overview of what the platform can look like?
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah. Whenever a person logs in, you've got different types of staff that can log in. So you've got clinician staff members, or the administrator of the website, or as a PCN member of staff. So I'm logging in today as an admin. And so we've just the landing page is going to land on my practice on this particular day. So what this particular page shows is the various clinical rooms and workspaces within your practice. So they're all listed down the left side. So we have 7 clinical rooms and multiple admin areas for our practice manager, our secretary, our results, front desk, and then the various staff members working on a timeline on the right here. So you can see exactly where everybody is and in what workstation or room that they're in. So it's amazingly powerful just to know how your entire practice is working across both your clinical and admin side. Because as we all know, we're getting really pressured for our apprentices with the number of staff members from within our own surgeries and coming from the rest of the system coming to work within our surgeries, and trying to fit everybody in is a real challenge, and fit them around all each other, and all the various hot desking that occurs can be incredibly complicated to organize. So we wanted to make that as simple as possible and as visually easy to see and manipulate, so you can easily, making changes as simple as dragging a session. You can make sessions shorter or longer by just simply interacting with the calendar. You can move somebody from one particular station to another session, or you also, as we are working from home a lot more now, you can just see who's also working from home, and say, we can say that one of the doctors has to work from home today. You move them up the slot, and you can see that a resource becomes free within the practice. So it's very easy to manipulate and see on a daily basis or a 7-day basis what's going on in your surgery. But you can also then zoom out to a wider view of what's going on onto a month view. So you can see plan on a weekly and monthly basis. So the rotas can get quite complicated to show both the clinical and the admin at the same time. So that's why we developed filters, so you can filter it by clinicians. Making it much more easy. Say if you're adding your clinician rota to EMIS, you want to be able to just see your clinician sessions, or whatever rota role groups you're dealing with, you want to filter it down to that. Or if you're looking at organising where your staff are working, you can just simply filter it down to the staff. And you can do it at a more granular level for particular staff groups on the filter. So one of the things that we find particularly useful, I'm sure many people doing the rota will know, is just knowing when you're missing a certain session type. So if you're missing an on-call on a particular day, so you can filter by session type, and then instead of colouring it by the clinicians, it colours by the session type. And so you can see, so blue for us is on call, so I can quickly look, and I can see that every day is covered by an on-call session, and if there isn't, I can identify a gap. So that's mainly the rota functions. If you want to add a session, it's as simple as just tapping on a day, and you can add a session. And we also have templates. When you're developing a rota, generally most practices have a regular pattern. So you pre-program it with your templates for that particular week. So all that detail about which room they're normally in and which clinician works which day and all the timings is you only need to add once, and then you can just add that template to whatever week, and you can just choose whichever template you're working with, and it comes up. And if you have existing sessions on there that you want to keep, you can select sessions that you want to keep and not remove by adding the template. So that's a very powerful way of building up your rota very quickly over many weeks, and then provide the fine tweaks afterwards. And so once you've done that, I think, as Kiran said, you want to be able to see whether you're allocating sessions fairly. So there's a lot of statistic modules built in the statistics section. So say, for example, you wanted to know how many on-calls have been done over a week. You can filter it to the on-call session, and then it'll pull out that data for that that particular date range that you're looking through. So you can see the number of on-calls that a particular doctor has done on a day, and then you can drill down further by clicking on a particular session. And it will show those particular sessions, so you can see if it's accurate as well.
So I think it's also, I was going to say, I think, this information you're displaying here, I mean, there's several ways that we show fairness. This is a statistical tool, but we also have what we call a virtual wall planner. And that basically shows the same information, but more in a kind of colorful picture view. This might look rather complicated, but it's showing you what you're looking for. So for instance, if you just search for on-calls, it will then show you on your virtual wall planner, it will just show you just the on-call sessions, and you can quite easily at a glance see how many that you've done. Quite a lot of information on one wall planner there, but if you select maybe a different session, you might then see a little bit less information. And it's quite easy to follow with the eye. You can quite easily see, well, I can quite count how many on-calls I've done. But just as much you've got this view is very useful for things like annual leave and study leave. So you can see here, this is the wall planner for this year. It's got 2020, but just as much if you click on the show sessions for and change the year, you can quite easily look at the wall planner for the previous year. So I don't know what most practices do with their last year's wall planner, but often it's rolled up, put in the corner. But with GP Rota, the idea is all that information is there and it's accessible at any time. Now, I think some practices, what they do is they have this the idea that if you're on call, if you're on annual leave for over a summer holiday on a particular week in June, then the following year you can't have that same week off. And so it's quite easy to be able to look between this year and last year to try and work out, what sessions you had last year. And so before even that person puts in the annual leave, they can quite easily see all our tools that we have for fairness. We have it accessible for all of our staff members, so they can all go in and see the fairness tools. We want to have a transparent system that shows fairness.
And I guess with that as well, you also have the additional functionality for things like PCNs and hubs and kind of as well. Particularly the PCN one seems a little bit interesting. Should we have a brief look at that, if that's all right?
Yeah, sure. So as a clinical director, I always the obvious urge was how can we develop this tool to help PCNs? So not only from an admin side of view, from actually a clinician working within a PCN and navigating, often working across several surgeries, can be quite difficult. And so and to know where your peers are and where you can get support from. So one of the initial things that I wanted to do with the extended hours was for all my 6 surgeries to be able to plot on this calendar all the extended hours they're doing, so we can keep a track of easily whether they're meeting the minimum requirements and that it's being fulfilled. And as the months and years are going on, we're adding more and more staff, and it's been incredibly useful just to know where everybody is working across the PCN, and being able to organise our resources effectively. And with a lot of home working now, for example, our pharmacists sometimes do a e-hub session across the whole PCN and they work from home. So it's useful to know when and where they're doing that from. And they can also add session comments about what they've been doing that session, to communicate when we have our, I was working on the diabetes work, whatever session, it's also a good work tracker as well. And so additional tools. So, I work with my PCN manager just to go through all the tasks that we're working on, and checking them off and getting frequent updates about what's happening with that particular task has been incredibly powerful as well. But I think what we found quite useful is it all comes down to one, is keeping a track of the money and also how we're planning our workforce, and the Ready Reckoner, as you've seen with many Excel spreadsheets online, you often have to fill in a lot of the initial data yourself, but this is all pre-populated because we know what surgeries belong to your PCN. We're pulling in the latest data from the NHS payments data, and it does all the calculations for you. If you enter the number of care home beds, number of particular staff types that you've currently employed, so you can work out your current expenditure and know how much balance is remaining. So because you want to know, you want to plan for the years ahead, and also how you use any underspend, and also just get a quick view of all your income streams as a PCN calculated for your. I mean, it's very complicated. Some things are calculated on patient list size, some things are on weighted list size, so that takes care of that all automatically for you.
Mhm.
So we have the extended hours calculator. So for a set period, you can see how many hours each of your practices has done for their extended hours and whether they're meeting the minimum requirements for that particular range, which on my practices find incredibly useful, so they can keep a track of that. But this is something that we really want to continue to develop as we go on, and working working with more PCNs now and identifying what needs they have, and trying to develop the tools that will help them directly. So it's very much built, very much develops on what people ask for, what people find useful, and often that starts
Mhm.
with myself. Kiran as both GPs and PCN directors and digital leads, we know we've got a very first-hand view of what would be useful, but that's only part of the picture. So it's very much shaped by our users who become quite enthusiastic users.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just add in there that in relation
Mhm.
to making an impact on every single staff member within the practice, the rota that Arjuna showed earlier about the PCN, what we do is we send a mail shot to every single staff member to tell them, which practice they're working in, on what day, at what time, but also down to the detail that tells them which room. So there should never be an issue that a pharmacist didn't know which practice they're working for, or which room they're working, whether they're working remotely for which practice. So all of that information gets sent to them on the Saturday, so they're ready on Monday. And the same thing with
Mhm.
practices that might be, the on-call patterns might change. Everyone should know who's on call because all that information has been sent to them on that Saturday. And so we do that at a practice level, we do that at a PCN level. We also do it for the task feature that Arjuna showed earlier, so that everyone knows every week you get a mail shot that tells you these are the outstanding tasks allocated to
Mhm.
you, and until they're completed, they're sent to you. So as I say, we're trying to make an impact on every single staff member within your organization and your PCN.
Yeah, it's actually amazing how much that weekly mail shot makes a difference, because sometimes when there's a glitch and that email doesn't go out on a Saturday, you get into messages because they really rely on that to know what they're doing for the week ahead.
Mhm.
So that's inadvertently become a very useful feature.
Okay. And I guess moving forward then, in terms of plans for the future, I know one of the things everyone keeps talking about is integration. Does the platform integrate with, I guess, with the things like the clinical systems like System 1 and EMIS? And if not, is there plans for that in the future? Do I
Yeah.
can see that
Can I
being.
take that question? Yeah. I mean, we've been working quite closely with various parties to try and see what we can do. And
Mhm.
we've spoken to the likes of EMIS, even gone down to talking to, or they've spoken to their developers in Chennai to try and work out, is this something they can create for us? But
Mhm.
it's a project we're still working on. There are no solutions at the moment. We ideally want an API. That's our solution that we want. But what we have done in the meantime is we've created an RSS feed that you can add on your home screen on EMIS that actually gives you a summary of all the sessions that are coming up for that particular week. So there are other ways that we can integrate with systems at the moment, although we've not been able to get the full API. And this is something that we're constantly developing and working on.
Yeah, so EMIS, were quite excited when we showed them GP Rota, and they were trying to figure out how they could work with us, but they just didn't have. No one's ever sort of asked them. So what we would really love is to be able to create the rota on GP Rota, and then click of a button once it's ready to publish. That laborious
Mhm.
task of creating the appointment sessions in EMIS, we just want to make that so much easier. So
Yeah.
we're working with the trying to get working with EMIS X team, so with their
Yeah.
next iteration of
But
EMIS.
it's not just EMIS. We're trying to work with other parties as well to try and to get integration. I mean, it'd be great if we can work with the likes of System One as well, because I know that with System One, if you book your holidays on System One, then you try and put a session on, it's already protected. It doesn't allow you to do that. So, it looks like
Mhm.
there may be a further scope working with the likes of System One and maybe Vision, and maybe EMIS might come down the line.
And I guess then with the platform itself, I know currently that you're offering a and stuff to support practice, but if practice were interested in, using this product, can you give us an idea of the cost and stuff that people would have to consider?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is anyone that shows an interest, we just simply ask them to register on the site. Because of the current climate, because of COVID, we've opened up our platform to any practice or any organization to use for the next 3 months. We're quite transparent about our prices. It's on, if you go to our website, all the details are there. There's a pricing page that tells you if you're looking for a tool for your practice or for your hub or as a PCN, it's based on your raw list size. And actually, what we offer is a sort of remote light touch. So it's a bit like remote consultations as we're offering at the moment. And so we provide the support that the practice might need if they want to set up, or if they want to simply play around with it. We're not asking anyone to commit, but we're saying, look, have a go. We spent a lot of time developing this. It works really well for our practices. A lot of other practices, believe in the same thing we believed in, and that it works for them as well. And we're hopeful that it will work for maybe many other organisations, other practices, PCNs practices, hubs across the UK. If they want to use it, it's there for them.
Cool. And I guess, where do you see the future of GP Rota going, say, for the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to understand with GP Rota. I mean, I see it as almost as a cause. I mean, we're on a journey here, and it's the journey that we started in 2014. But it's something that we enjoy. It's a passion for us. Hence the reason that we didn't want to sell this product out to anybody, because actually we wanted to make sure that we see it to the end. We create a product that's evolving, with the likes of PCNs coming on board and the likes of COVID happening. There's a lot of digital transformation that's developed within GP Rota for the good. But this is a project that we feel that firmly we were very authentic and genuine with what we're trying to create here. We're not part of any kind of outside investors or anything like that. We're genuine. We're trying to support general practice, the survival of general practice, and the future workforce of general practice. Try and work out how practices can allocate trainees within their building to make sure they've got someone to cover them. That's how you can use the estate tool. So we want the survival of general practice, not the privatization of general practice. So we offer all the tools here that allow practices to save a lot of time, save money. But actually, the tools that we have. So, for instance, as a partner, it's important that we're looking at we don't want to keep relying on things like locums. And so the idea is you can see who within your practice can cover that shift, or you can offer a shift in lieu and a payback. So there's various other mechanisms to allow practices to save money by using this tool.
Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen. It's been really to see the kind of platform and the way that potentially have real, I think, benefit for practices, and particularly the fact that everything just seems to be available in one place to try and help them. Right, the dream absolutely going to be that integration element of things with the systems. That amazing ability to have your rota, then click a button, it's on the system. Oh, that would be so nice if we can get to that. But I appreciate that there are, as with everything in the NHS, integration challenges when it comes to that. Everyone knows those difficulties and stuff. But we can see where this goes, and definitely would suggest that people have a look, like you say, at the platform to see what it wants and how it can work for practice. And as you mentioned, that 3-month free trial, awesome offer, really is. I think a nice way for people to have the opportunity to have a play around. I know you've got a lot more content on your website as well, in terms of videos and guides of how to use individual parts, so people can explore those. As I said, each of you, feel free to check it out, have a look and things. Thank you for your time. As always, each of you, if you've got any comments or questions, let us know. More than happy to try and answer them. Subscribe. And as always, we're here to help save you and your patient's time. We'll take an answer your primary care and learning. We'll catch you in the next episode.